For me, it was a very dramatic start. And it was in 2004 when we almost lost our third child, Olivia. And up until then, I was just being busy doing the thing I thought I was supposed to be doing. That, I did the traditional, went to school, got my education, my degrees, got a career, got married, had kids. I was on the cultural timeline. And then when Olivia went into respiratory distress and was airlifted, my whole world came kind of falling apart because this wasn't on the plan. I had the timeline, I had everything planned, and this wasn't part of it. And so up until then, my life was very much filled. I was living the life I had planned. And so I went into several days when she was in ICU, and we were just waiting, and that doctor said there was nothing more they could do. They just had to wait this out and see which way Olivia would go. And so I was very numb. But then I switched into a stage of anger. And I became very angry because I thought I didn't deserve this. I thought my spirituality at that point was really minimal. I was raised as a church kid in a Christian home, but I wasn't very much of a believer. At least the God that they were offering me wasn't the God that I could believe in, and still don't. So that original sort of childhood image of a man in the sky, judging and creating consequences for us, still isn't what I would believe in God. But so that description wasn't working for me in the situation. And then when I was really angry, I decided to, project my anger out to this God and review my performance, my human report card, to point out to him that, as you can see, I didn't have, a teenage pregnancy. I didn't do drugs. I didn't live common law. I got my education. I got married afterwards. I had the kids after I got married. I followed all the cultural rules I thought would equate to being a good girl. And so then I thought I was this innocent victim, and that he got the wrong girl. And so in my fit of anger, which I think also was no coincidence, that was Easter morning of 2004. We were staying at Ronald McDonald House in London, because that's where she was airlifted to. And I had to use the breast pump, and I'm having this fit of anger and conversation with God. And all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I heard a voice that distinctly didn't feel like my own, to the point where I had to look around the room to see if there was somebody in the room. And the voice said, if you stay angry, you'll miss the reason why this is happening. And then I had a visual of seeing myself, struggling and fighting these rapids, like trying to swim up rapids, and then gracefully just flipping over and riding the waves in surrender. And so I had this feeling of surrender wash over me. And I suddenly realized that was where the peace would lie, when I could surrender to the reality rather than fight it. And so I became in this enormous sense of peace. And then later that morning, I was scheduled to call our minister, who was sort of the communicator between the community back home and to keep everybody updated. And she wanted an update for church that morning. And she said, "How are things, Jill?" And I remember my response was, everything's going to be just fine. And she said, "Oh, great. Is Olivia off the respirator? Is she out of critical care?" And I realized, oh, no, it had nothing to do with Olivia. And I said, no, everything's going to be fine. And I told her what happened. And I said, you need to tell everybody that this is happening for a reason, and it could be different for different people, and that they'll find their peace if they stay calm and stay open, and they'll receive the answer. And so that's what she shared with the congregation Easter morning, is that everyone was directed to not be angry about this situation and just to surrender and be open. And then parallel with all of this was my own physical healing journey. I was born with different complications in my joints, and I'd had corrective surgery at Sick Kids as a child. And now things were starting to take their toll as I was approaching my late 30s. And so I was looking into hip replacements. And so I had both my hips replaced in my early 40s. And so I also was on a healing journey of, can I become more active in my own healing? And so that also brought in the power of the mind and how our thoughts affect not only our lives, but our physical bodies and the state of our physical health and our ability to heal our bodies. So I had sort of a lot that kind of came together that really guided me to go deeper into a spiritual journey.